Oh, cool.
All right. Afternoon, everybody. My name is Brent Manning, one of the founders of Riverbend, and I'm here with Vince from DSSOLVR.
Hey.
And yeah, we're going to take a deep dive on this cool little beer called VR Pizza Boi. It's got a lot of stories to tell, so we figured Vince and I would just sit down and kind of tell the tale from both of our perspectives and enjoy a great beer in the process. So to kind of kick things off, the main malt in this was a special collaboration we did with our good friends out at Skagit Valley, and so it was kind of a raw barley swap, and just kind of as an exploration in barley terroir. And so they sent us a couple of tons of this barley variety called Talisman, and part of Talisman's genetic lineage goes back to Maris Otter, and so of course anytime you drop that name, we were pretty pumped to be a part or get a chance to malt something with that kind of genetics. So eager to jump in, and so we started the process. You know, obviously we wanted to create a really nice traditional British pale ale malt. And we thought we had a pretty good recipe for producing that kind of malt, working with our Southern Select. But you know, each barley has its own quirks and temperaments, so we ended up with something a little different. Even though we kilned it, what we think to be darker, like a British pale ale, it kind of landed lighter, more in the Pilsner territory, about 2 SRM, and the soluble over total protein levels were in the low 40s, so that even though it got 4.5 days of germination, it's still definitely in a Pilsner position in terms of modification level. So a really interesting project to play around with that, and so we shopped it around to a bunch of our good buddies in around the area. We folks at Green Man produced a Helles with it, and our friends at Fireforge down in the upstate South Carolina put together a bitter. And so this one here is a Dortmunder lager, and just, man, the first time I had one of these, I thought it was delicious, and I just really wanted to take a deep dive with Vince and dig into the style and just really learn a little bit more about your process in the brew house, Vince.
Yeah, so when we learned about the fact that it was, oh man, hell yeah. When we learned about the fact that it was similar to a Pilsner, but it was going to be a little bit more full-bodied, we had the original intention of brewing a lager with it. We knew we wanted to do something like that, really malt forward. So we weren't really sure what style we were going to brew. We just ordered a volume that we could do kind of whatever with. So we could have made a pale ale, we could have done something. We knew we wanted to do something lager forward, so I guess an IPL would have been the move. As soon as we cracked the bag open and tried some of the malt, we knew this was going to fit right into a style that we've been kind of waiting for that the stars to align.
Yeah.
So a Dortmunder is similar to a Pilsner, similar to a Helles, but it fits kind of somewhere in between, but in like a triangle format where it's like a Venn diagram. It's got a lot similar to a Helles, similar to a Pilsner, but there's also a lot different about it. So it's going to have the hop presence of a Pilsner, but less bitterness, and the hop presence of a Helles, but in a more decidedly noble way versus a little bit more on the fruitier side. So the hops are there, but also a little bit restrained. You're going to have the IBU similar to a Helles, if not slightly less, and your minerality is going to be considerably higher. It's going to much harder water profile. The beer in and of itself has more oomph, and the big notoriety about a Dortmunder, and something that we've been waiting for this like perfect malt or perfect storm, is the fact that the malt is supposed to be at the forefront. So you're looking for something with a higher malt presence than a Pilsner, considerably a higher malt presence than a Helles, but kind of in that same Helles range of hop profile, just less intense and a little bit more noble. So we went with Sterling and Pearl. So we're going to get a little bit of that noble, a little bit of fruity, but by and large, the way that we use both of these hops are more subdued. Lower whirlpool additions, lower boil additions, but still enough of a variety between the hops and the malt to really let that malt shine. And I genuinely think it did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's really interesting, you know, because when I think about the topic of minerals, I guess I revert back to West Coast IPAs and the way that brewers typically utilize water chemistry to really make the hops pop in that style. But so it's really surprising to see this really clean line between an IBU level that's lower than Helles, but really pops up front, but then it quickly transitions to that sort of carbonic kind of flavor profile. It goes really quickly through that noble note into that carbonic note. So really super cool. And then the mouth or the sort of malt sweetness sort of lingers in the background through it all, but it doesn't get completely washed away by that carbonic note.
Yeah, so. And the high minerality has I guess a perception akin to licking granite. Which is supposed to be, I mean, if you're talking Dortmunder, it's an extremely mineral forward water profile, hard water. The benefit to a lot of what we do, our yeast, our pH modification, how we do things on the hot side, how we do things on the cold side, spunding for natural carbonation to give it that softer mouthfeel. It's a very interesting beer to drink because it has that really big malt presence up front, but then it falls a little bit, so it's not overwhelmingly sweet. It's actually pretty dry. Yeah. And then that dryness just goes right into that minerality, and the bitterness is there to just kind of back it up and just keep it afloat without being overly aggressive, I should say. And then the carbonic, the carbonic presence that we got from natural spunding and natural carbonation really gives it this like extra smooth, crisp finish. And we are typically shooting for a little bit of a lower pH. I believe this ended somewhere in the like 4.12 range, if memory serves correct. And it helps to exacerbate a little bit of that crisp pop. But with the minerality, with the super soft carbonation, with that malt presence, it all kind of adds up into this like, it's picking and pulling and wanting to be drier and harder and softer and more malty and balanced in terms of IBUs and residual sweetness from the gravity. So it's oddly extremely balanced, but somehow hitting all of those.
There's a lot of a lot of territory it's covering. You know, it's like a good fest beer. You know, where it sort of cleans up and says, "Okay, you're ready for it." Your mouth is like, "All right, one more sip, please." And but yeah, I want to go back to the spunding because I don't fully understand like the actual brewing process. Is there special equipment that you need in the brew house to like really pull that type of carbonation off?
Man, this is really good. Sorry. Yeah, I haven't had this out of a can.
Take a moment. Take a moment.
We have that side pull, which exacerbates that. It'll break more of that carbonation out and smooth it out a little bit more. So out of a can, it's just the carb is so perfect.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what was it? Oh, spunding.
Spunding, yeah.
So we use a spunding valve, which is, it's essentially like a spring-loaded valve that you can adjust. So it responds to head pressure. So you put it on the blow-off arm of your fermenter, and then it'll put your fermenter under pressure. So we will typically aim for, we will give it the final temp raise for a diacetyl rest, and then we do that about 2-ish to maybe 2.5 Plato from final gravity.
Okay.
And then just about that, like right in between that 1 to 1/2 Plato, we found works really well for our specific yeast and our size fermenters. It can vary yeast to yeast and fermenter to fermenter, but we will throw the spunding valve on and it'll reach that 15 to 20 psi range, and then that valve will start to bubble a little bit. So it's essentially a pressurized airlock.
Got it.
So you can trap that carbonation in suspension. You've got to have fermenters that are capable of it. You've got to have a spunding valve that's properly dialed in. But through our process, trial and error, just paying close attention. I mean, we pay more attention to the lagers than pretty much any other beer in the cellar.
Right.
The windows for doing those things and nailing it are so tight, but we've actually gotten to the point where all of our lagers are 100% naturally carbonated, 0% forced carbonation. And about 85% of our IPAs
Nice.
It would be 100 if it weren't for us trying a couple different things in the cellar, but we're trying to get to a point where all of our beer is actually naturally carbonated for that softer, smoother mouthfeel.
Got it. And is there, and so that's different from forcing, different from sort of bottle conditioning.
Yep.
Okay.
It's similar
or is
to
it
bottle
similar to bottle
conditioning.
conditioning?
You're trapping esters, phenols, any of those. So when yeast produces gas, it's not just CO2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting some of these other flavoring compounds, a little bit more aromatic, and in typical. What we've found is that the bubbles it's tinier bubbles.
Right.
And so it's it comes across softer. And for us, we found an increase in head retention as well. Through forced carbonation, we found that we've lost a little bit of aroma if we do a side-by-side with IPAs.
Yeah.
So we found that it's beneficial in a multitude of ways. And then the energy and cost savings and environmental footprint is small, but I mean that adds up over time.
Sure, definitely. No, and that's really interesting because when I think of the ability of a saison or a style like that to really benefit from bottle conditioning,
100%.
It sounds like the same type of beneficial flavor development can happen even before packaging. So
Yes.
I didn't really realize that was possible. So that's super cool to learn about that.
I mean, it's as beneficial to lagers as it is to saisons, pub ales, and we've even found benefits to some of our IPAs that we've been forced carbing versus spunding versus forced carbing. We found a softer final presence.
Right on.
So,
which is huge in a hazy.
huge,
if you can just add that one extra little element of that pillowy mouthfeel, you're bringing the customer exactly what they're after.
Yeah,
so,
and I think it's these like small differences. I mean, this is a dramatically different Pilsner malt than we have gotten from you guys before.
Totally, yeah.
And so I feel like it's all of these small differences that will put different styles in their place, and understanding how to use all these different things. But a lot of it is trial and error. So. I mean, just being able to have access to this was a dramatically different offering than what you guys normally get. So we're very excited to exist outside of a stylistic offering that we normally offer.
Yeah. When we did sensory on it, there were some immediate differences for us. Even, anytime you've got a malt that's around 2.5 SRM, the maltster really is really kind of leaning into the grain a little bit. We're not creating a lot of Maillard reactions. We're not going deep in that flavor development. So I mean, that really is the variety kind of speaking right there when we keep colors that low. And one thing for me is I always feel like our two varieties that we use, Calypso and Violetta, always impart like a little sort of green tea, slight astringency in the finish, and I didn't pick that up at all with this malt. It was just a nice light biscuit notes, and it was just truly different, and I was surprised and excited by that, because it's, we talk a lot about varietal difference, terroir, and all of that, and I think this was a good example of what it truly is out there.
Totally.
Yeah, because I mean, the variety, the parentage of Calypso and Violetta we use is a totally different branch on the tree, and so I think that again sort of backs up some of that, those conversations about terroir and flavor and what things mean. So super fascinating, man. And so so the lager program is a big piece of what y'all are doing here. I mean, with the series, are you trying a monthly release schedule? Is that what y'all are up to? Something even more aggressive, or?
So the way that we're doing it right now, we have 3 lagering tanks, and the intention is to get a 4th. Turns out it was a little bit of a slow year for everyone.
Yeah. Totally.
But we will do 1 week of primary fermentation, 1 week of cold conditioning in a vertical fermenter, and then we'll transition to 6 weeks in a horizontal conditioning tank. So we are releasing lagers that have been feasibly 7 weeks cold conditioned every 2 weeks.
Nice.
The goal is to get that to 9 weeks with a 4th horizontal conditioning tank, which would be like, I guess, quote unquote proper is like 8 plus, but we found positive results from the 7-week mark. But yeah, we're every 2 weeks we're dropping a fully conditioned lager.
Nice.
Yeah.
And from a freshness standpoint in a can, like how have you done any like testing to see like, okay, this beer kicks ass at a month, and then 6 months it's sort of meh?
Yeah, we actually, so since we started doing the spunning, we found oddly the lifespan of the beers will extend a little bit.
Nice.
So we will typically, we'll send a little bit of beer into the cooler, and then we'll, just in terms of like long-term storage, and we'll typically visit beers like, I don't know, 3 months or so afterwards and talk about it. We found, I mean, the lagers really will not start dropping off until that like 120-day mark. And even then it's like, we are neurotic to a point of annoyance about dissolved oxygen pickup in terms of transfers. We purge the living hell out of tanks. We purge the living hell out of these horizontal tanks, especially with these lagers, and we'll package right out of it to minimize another transfer. So, I mean, we pay strict attention to canning methodology for all these. So, I mean, we'll stand by that 120, 150 day for sure. And I think they'll develop a little bit. I mean, I think it's the same thing with most packaged beers. It needs, beer is a living thing. And we don't do any filtering or pasteurization or anything. And so I think that because it's a living thing and you're beating it up a little bit by packaging, most of our beer will benefit from about 3 weeks cold, and then that's usually when it'll really hit its stride, whether that's hop burn or settling or whatever.
Oxidation in general,
any of that like minor oxidation will have a different effect, and sort of kind of that like slowing period will happen after that like 2 to 3 week period. Lagers, I always say like it's best on day one, but we found by and large most beverages are 2 to 3 weeks, and then it'll kind of hit that point where it'll just stay there for 100+ days.
And I noticed in a post yesterday that Oxbow had started directly printing on the can like the production window that you just spoke to, and I wonder if that's going to be kind of a way to sort of signal value and intention to the customer moving forward. Is like, look, man, this is for real. We're going by the book. We're checking all the boxes as we go through. Yes, it's got some different ingredients, but the technique and the time is still invested in this product. So
I think it's really cool to see you guys like the Oxbow crew, and then Todd from Fonta Flora has always been a big proponent of the first question he'll ask about your lager is, so how long did you cold condition it? And if it's not deemed an appropriate amount of time, he will immediately tell you like, that's not a lager, man. So I think that the cold conditioning time that comes along with some of these things, and the traditional aspect of some of this production methodology is extremely important. I fully agree. And
I mean, it's got hundreds of years of support behind it. So
and
I mean,
we've tried to do a decent job of conveying that to the customer, but I think it's also like so many breweries are doing so many different things these days that conveying all of, like, we have so much to say. But I think, putting the lagering tanks like right up front, it's the first thing that you see when you walk in, regardless of whether or not you know.
Well, I was gonna say, not everybody's gonna recognize that, but yeah, no, I just think it's great as a value proposition to talk about the malt, talk about the time, because that's kind of one of the things that's going on in craft beer right now. Is there's kind of a $1 a can lager movement, and then a kind of craft, and so any way I think that you can step out and show that value proposition to the customer, I think is a win, and just sort of support that price per 4-pack. I think it's a good move for sure.
I think it's the consistency of staying local, supporting local economies, supporting smaller businesses, supporting craft. It's part of what we've done, and I mean, we were pretty vocal about it from day one. Is like, we want to get to the point where we can move a majority of our base malt into local base malt, and we have with you guys. Our lager program is damn near 100% Riverbend, which is cool.
I didn't even ask. Is there something other than Talisman in here?
No, 100% Talisman actually. And we do put like Riverbend whenever we use it on the can, or craft malt in general. And I feel like it's, it takes time, and hammering that home to the customer is like, if the repeatability of it is what makes it, instills that value. It's like, this wasn't a one-off thing. This is a conscious effort to maintain this.
Yeah, I love it that a lot of your bottle shop customers have gotten the message. So I think that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, well, this is good stuff, man. Well, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about something completely on the other end of the spectrum that you guys we're involved in. So
literally the opposite style of beer.
This is what I love. It's so this 4-pack is a super cool multi-brewery collaboration for a show called Crafted that's going on Amazon here, I believe next week on Facebook Live now. Yeah, you got everybody's logo popping there. I'll spin those around. So you guys, Green Man, Zillicoa, Bramari, this was a super fun project, man. Putting these collaborative beers together was just so cool. And the release is actually tonight, right? So people can try these on draft in the tap room.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, each brewery has all 4 beers on draft and all 4 beers available in mix packs.
Super cool.
Yeah, I mean this was a really fun project in terms of focusing on local ingredients and kind of keeping an air of a larger scale collaboration for a project.
Yep.
I mean, we all talked about individual beers and how we were all going to brew different beers, but the basis behind this whole project was everybody goes on in utilizing the same malt as a base malt, and then utilizing yeast of their choosing from a local supplier, White Labs, which is great to have you guys.
Our good homies there. Yeah.
And then choose another supplier locally for another adjunct.
Yeah.
So it was an adjuncted beer of your stylistic choosing, and it's really funny to see, like, I mean, in the beginning, everybody was like, I want to brew a pub ale.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we can't do a 4-pack of pub ales.
Nope. We're not. People will not pay for pub ales. So what else you got? And,
so the guys at Zillicoa did an American Hef with honey. The guys at Green Man did the coffee kolsch with the cooperative coffee guys, which are great. And then the Asheville Bee Charmer for the honey. With the Zillicoa one, and then Hawk Creek Honey and Willow Springs Lemongrass for the Bramari, and that was a double dry hop double India Pale Ale, and then we did a fluffy India Pale Ale with marshmallows from French Broad Chocolate, and we just got huge.
Oh, they actually made them?
They made the marshmallows.
Badass.
There was like sheets of marshmallow stacked like this high. It was, I mean, like 20 pounds of marshmallow. Is an astounding amount of marshmallows.
That is a lot, because sheet trays maybe weigh a pound or something like that.
It was aggressive. And so we did that, and then it's like our riff on a lactose-free milkshake IPA. So marshmallow instead of lactose, and then to help bolster that vanilla, we used more vanilla, and then dry hopped it into oblivion with Huel Melon, Mandarina Bavaria, Galaxy, and Equinaut for that like candied orange kind of.
And that really does come through.
Oh yeah.
It's
but it's like, this is one of the drier beers. Our lagers are we ferment to bone dry. The Helles is the driest that we produce. But like 2 Play-Doh pretty much for this lager. I think it was like 2.2 Play-Doh, and then. Just one of the sweetest beers we've produced in terms of like heft. Yeah. Just to back up that like marshmallow, vanilla, whatever. But I mean, the base malt still shines through.
It does, and really I was amazed. When I read through the description, I was like, wow, okay. Let's see how this goes, And but yeah, the malt still shows up there as part of the package.
Yeah, and that was what we wanted to do. Was like the malt was assertive, so we were pretty confident that whatever we threw at it would be it would still shine through. So we wanted to keep it higher mash temp, higher final gravity, bigger malt presence. And that heft would help with the style and with the malt presence in terms of actually making sure that it shone through. And it totally did. It got this like caramelized sweet orange thing really moving in a forward direction. We just drank, so like, it's the big releases today. And so we were trying the beers last night, and it really does have this candied orange caramel effect from the malt. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely dig it, man. So just really enjoyed this project, and these kind of collaborations are super fun. The can art's dope. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's good stuff. So people can show up here, and then I believe the next step will be distribution through the Crafted website, right? Of the 4-packs.
Yeah, so Florida is seeing distribution through the Crafted website. I think the Burmari episode is tonight.
Yeah.
Mike, is our episode on Sunday?
I think so.
I think our episode is Sunday, and then the Green Man episode is sometime next week.
Cool.
Something like that. But
Very
all the
nice.
episodes up within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, very cool stuff. I thought the
Yeah.
guys did a great job with the Zillicoa one, and
Oh,
I'm
man.
pumped to see the Burmari one tonight. So
It's tough to make those guys look anything but interesting.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's just a cool idea. I mean, Asheville is the beer culture here is well known, but the behind the scenes story maybe not so much, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool to get to know some of the personalities behind what makes the beer scene so special. So
Yeah,
I'm pretty
based
pumped.
on the Zillicoa one, I think they're gonna knock it out of the park.
Yeah, totally. So it's good stuff. Yeah. Well, man, thank you. It's
you.
been good hanging, and yeah, thank you to any and all. Mike, do we have any questions or any?
No, just some nice comments. You all are the bee's knees.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So cool. Well, we'll end on a high note. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.